Howdy again, folks. This is the following day from the last video. I've been doing a lot of threshing with this thing, and I wanted to share a few of the things I've figured out. One is, as the owner's manual states, always wear safety glasses. You saw me wearing them yesterday, but I didn't make a point to make a big deal about it. But yeah, some grain comes flying back out the top here, and if you didn't have these on, you're going to get grain in your eye. It also sometimes flies down your shirt, which is interesting. That's why I'm not tucked in, so I can just drop out. The gloves are also a good idea. You saw me wearing them yesterday. Loose-fitting gloves with open cuffs are best. So if you do something stupid like stick your hand in too far and it grabs a hold of your glove, the glove can come off your hand a lot easier if it's a loose-fitting glove. A couple things I figured out operationally on the machine. One, this lever, which I talked about yesterday as having never used before because I didn't need it. This is the dump lever that kind of opens up the chamber and just dumps the material out. I've used this twice, or well, in two occasions, I should say. I've used it many times since yesterday. One is when I'm feeding in a bunch of wheat like I am, or grain rather, wheat, rye, whatever. I've run both through this thing now. And your sheaves are made in such a way that all the grain isn't at the same level. That is, you've got some grain up at the top and some like a foot down, and you end up feeding a lot of it in there, and you get more stalk in there, more straw in there than ideal, because you're just having to feed it in further. You know, with all that straw running around in there, you're going to end up with a little more straw in your wheat. Well, the thing is, once you get a buildup of it in there, you can eject it. That is, you can just get it out of there. And what I'll typically do, because you'll have some wheat flying around in the chamber that's kind of held in suspension by all the straw that's flying around in there too. So I'll shut it off. I'll hit the shut off button, shut it off, and you can hear a bunch of wheat falling down into the chamber by gravity. So I'll shut it off, then immediately restart it, and as it's restarting, I'll open the dump lever and it'll just chuck out whatever's in there. So a lot of the straw goes, well, all the straw goes out. It cleans the chamber completely right then. So I've in the wheat I'm doing here, which was kind of, harvested at a time when, as I mentioned yesterday, a lot of this had lodged, so it's kind of weird bundles with the heads at a lot of different places. About every 2 or 3 handfuls I'm doing, that is 2 or 3 applications of wheat, I'm cleaning the chamber, and you'll see me do it. I'll get going here and I'll do that procedure. Another thing I want to point out is that the BCS Reaper binder, which I mentioned yesterday, is what has harvested and bundled this wheat. It makes too big a sheaf to feed all in here at once. The mouth of this thing up here is not big enough to accommodate a full sheaf. In fact, not even a half a sheaf. I mean, what I'm doing is cutting the bundles open. In fact, Sophie, if you want to walk over here to the truck, I'm cutting these bundles open, and probably 6 handfuls. It's, just a nice size handful that you're feeding in there. I found that if you try to put too big a handful in there, it just becomes a lot harder to deal with because you can't rotate it around and it won't fit in the mouth very well. It still goes pretty quick. You just get in the rhythm of it and figure out what bundle size works best for the kind of material. I was doing a slightly different bundle size with rye than I am with wheat because the heads are a little bigger on this. A little tip here, when you're ready to cut a bundle open, take a look around. Just do yourself a favor and look around for the knot. Cut it at the knot and hold the knot, and then pull that end of it, because if you pull the knot around the bundle, this knot's going to catch on a bunch of stalks and bend them and twist them every which way. That's not good. So just cut it at the knot, pull the nut up, and it comes right off, and it's not a problem. Another thing I want to mention is that I had mentioned in the earlier part of the video that we had cut this wheat on the green side and then it had to dry in the bundles. While that works pretty well, works very well in fact, in terms of how the Reaper binder binds it, or that is at that stage when the grain is a little green, there's not much chance of any of the seed falling off during the harvest and handling process. It's all still firmly attached. So that was great, but then it had to dry. And it's been about 2 months that this stuff has been sitting around. I probably could have threshed it a month ago. It dried, before now, but this is the first opportunity I've had. And it's been pretty humid here in central Kentucky. And I wanted to point out that one of the problems you get into if you have it stored, you harvest it green, it has to sit around and ripen, you better have good airflow because we've got some mildew on the inside of these bundles. Not much, but you can see the little whiteness on the outside of the hulls here. It's only in the center of these bundles. The outside looks fine. So what I'm doing is I'm just, kind of getting out this center portion of the bundles and discarding it. I don't want, mildew in my wheat, so I've got a pile of stuff over there that's no good. You can usually see it on the stalks. These look good here, no white stuff. Those look pretty good. Yeah, so just in the very center of these. The other thing is that in the Reaper Binder video, we talk about how you can adjust the Reaper Binder to make different size bundles. Small, well, they're small, medium, and large essentially, but I would recommend always making them small. You've got to cut them open anyway to feed them in, even a small bundle, which a lot of these were smalls. This one I think was a large. We were experimenting some with the sizes and you could tell some of them were just bigger. The ones that were bigger obviously had a better chance of mildewing because it was a denser bundle and there was more hay on the inside that didn't get good airflow. So make your bundles, if you're harvesting green, make your bundles on the small side so they can dry out better and make sure to store them in a place with good airflow. So we go back to threshing here. Another thing I want to point out is that as you're sticking the heads down in there and it's beating the grain off of the end, you'll get you'll pull it back out of there and you'll say, oh, it didn't get that head. Well, guess what? It did. There are no wheat seeds left in that. If the beaters have hit it significantly, even if the hull is still attached to the stalk here, the grain seeds are actually gone. Now there's some of these, like this one was a really low one. That one, didn't get beat off, so we'll throw it back in there. But a lot of these, those are empty. You can see that the hulls are actually busted open and the grain is out of them. So even if you see the bottom ones on that probably didn't get enough, but it's getting 95% of the grain. And of course, if the heads were all up at the top the way they should be, there's another one that didn't get hit, it would be a lot more effective. So I don't know, it just depends on how crazy you want to get picking through all this stuff. But I have found that, you end up with some stuff on the ground. Look, here's some wheat heads that just fell out, whatever. And there was some grass in the bundles too, which I've tried to pick out. But you can just take this stuff and chuck it in there. Even if it's whole stalks and you want to kind of clean up a little bit, you can just pitch it in there. Let's do a little cleanup work here. Okay, make sure I don't pick up any gravel. Stalks and all, I can turn this thing on, run it through it, and it'll deal with this straw. You don't want to put tons of straw through it, but in a case like this where it's just a few stalks, it'll process it and spit it out. I wanted to also point out, because I stopped short of what I should have said, this clean out lever. I said there were 2 instances where I used it. Well, the other instance was I was feeding a sheaf in there, or a bundle, and I didn't keep a good hold of it because it tries to pull you. It's pulling at you, and you got to keep a pretty good hold as you rotate that bundle around to let the beaters get at all sides of it. Anyway, one of them I was just lazy, and the thing just sucked it right in there. And it was kind of overloading the machine, so I just reached over here and just ejected the whole thing. Of course, I lost a little wheat there, but it teaches you that you don't do that. So let me get my safety glasses, and we'll feed through this little bit of wheat. hear the wheat falling down in there? Okay, it's done. I restart it, weed it out. It's a lot of that big straw out of there all at one time. Another way you can deal with threshing wheat is you can, take a big shears or something and actually cut the heads off of the stalks and then just feed the heads straight into the thing to where you're not holding the bundles. That's not what I'm doing here, but it's easily done if your wheat is bundled in such a way that the heads are kind of at a uniform height. You could just, take a big head shears or whatever, clip it off, or even a gas-powered head shears. You made a jig to kind of hold the stalks and let the heads hang out over the edge of a table or something to where you could trim them off and they would fall into a big bin, and then you can just dump them in here and let it process them, and it wouldn't have to deal with all the straw. You'd be feeding all the material through it. You wouldn't have to hold on to anything. It's just another way to do it, but not what I'm doing today. There was one more thing I wanted to cover. Oh yeah, so on the Reaper binder videos that we shot, you will see that which I haven't quite uploaded yet, but I will, we talk about how if you come to the end of your field and your Reaper binder is like halfway through making a bundle, and you get a partial bundle, what you should do with that. And in one instance, we actually just turned the machine around and started bundling again. Well, we started with this sort of half-formed bundle, which then kind of misshapen as we turned the machine around, and we started back in making a new bundle. Well, it kind of bundled it, but it made a very weird-looking bundle. And let me tell you, dealing with those is a pain in the neck when you're dealing with the thresher, because a lot of the heads are turned around backwards, stems are doubled over on themselves, and it's not fun. So I would say when you're out in the field harvesting with the Reaper binder, if you get to the end and you've got a partial bundle, just pull it out of the thing and get rid of it. Either that, or if you can figure out a way to keep it in place so it doesn't fall all over itself, maybe throw a little piece of bungee strap across the top to keep the grain from doubling over, then that would be fine, and then you could continue making the bundle on your next pass. But if it folds itself over, don't even fool with it. Just use it for compost or whatever, or leave it out in the field, because feeding it through this thing is a problem. I mean, you could just feed the whole bundle through there, let it deal with straw and all, and it would deal with it. You just end up with a little more straw in your wheat. Now, another thing I want to talk about is once you've got your finished product, and of course we're getting a lot of stalk in this because of the fact that I am having to feed a lot of stalk through there because of the various heights of the wheat that are bundled here. This is pretty easy to sieve out. That is just to run it through a screen and screen the material out, because we don't have any chaff in here in terms of the hulls. The hulls they're light, and they caught the air really well, and they got blown out. So it's all stalk that we're dealing with. So I've got it in here. This is the next coarsest screen from the one that's in the machine now. It's one screen coarser. And I'm just going to dump it through there. I actually haven't tried this yet, but I figured this idea might work. Pretty good. Might have to do it through the screen that's actually in the machine now. That's the right size for wheat. Because we continue to, by dumping it through something larger, obviously I'm going to get more stuff through there besides just the wheat. But it's an idea. And of course you can buy, you can make a bigger screen for yourself using, commonly bought hardware cloth or something like that. But the fact is, it's a quick way to get that material out of there without having to run it back through the machine. Yeah, it's just going to slowly sieve it down. I see it's going to work better if I tried it with the screen that's actually in the machine now, because again, these are big holes and some of the straw is going through there. But you get the idea. So, and I'm using bins here. These are just common plastic bins, but they had holes in the side to help pick them up, but I taped them over so I wouldn't lose feed on the side. And blocking it up, or getting the right size bin to actually fit under this thing is important if your bin doesn't come up pretty close to the opening, just put some blocks under it to you know, keep the openings at the sides here at a minimum. So that's it. Happy threshing. Thanks.